I was recently asked if black people truly are descendants of Africans and were brought to the Americas during slavery. Where are the slave ships, my brother? There's no way they could have transported 13 million peoples from Africa to the Americas, my brother. The transatlantic slave trade is a hoax, my brother, to hide the fact that we were already here, my brother. Firstly, I think we have to step back for a moment and realize that white Americans, or European Americans as I like to call them, were not the only contributors or perpetrators of the slave trade. The British, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the Dutch, the Danes, as well as Americans all played an integral role in slavery. The 13 million odd figure of enslaved Africans being trafficked from Africa to the New World was a combined joint effort. Hence why many different countries and islands in the Americas are populated by black people who are descendants of Africans but speak languages such as Spanish, French, English, Dutch, Portuguese, and so on. So with involvement from a multitude of European countries, it's very believable that between 1525 and 1866, that 13 million Africans were trafficked to the Americas. Now, before I get into the slave ships, figuratively speaking, there are at least 48 slave castles in West Africa still standing. Castles built by the Europeans to imprison and store captured Africans that they would then later send to the Americas. 95% of enslaved Africans were transported from Africa straight to the Caribbean and South America. Only 5% were sent to the United States directly. The Caribbean was known as the testing ground. The Caribbean was where the slave masters and overseers would break the enslaved Africans. Once they were broken and made docile, they were sold on and then transferred to the United States. This went on until the abolition of the slave trade. Now, I'm not talking about when slavery itself was outlawed, but when it became illegal to traffic Africans from Africa to the rest of the world for the purpose of slavery. Legality here was a fine line. You could not introduce new humans into slavery, but you could still transport and sell on humans that were already classified as slaves. However, this didn't stop the traders, as there was a lot of illegal slave traders searching for countries to sell African people on illegally. It's crazy to think there was a time when it was legal to sell a human being. Some of you may have seen the movie Amistad, or even read the book, which highlights this. They were transporting Africans to the Caribbean from Africa, but this had already been made illegal by the 1800s. When the case went to court, the white men lied and said that these were not African slaves, but instead they were born into slavery and were Cuban. Once the transport of African people had been made illegal, the focus was on trade of already enslaved humans of African descent between the islands and America.
That's the final resting place of the Clotilda. This is where that journey came to this desperate end, with the slavers, Timothy Mayer and Captain William Foster, realizing that, they may well end up in jail for this crime they've committed. Those guys are just trying to save their own skins as they light this thing on fire.
For a moment, let's start focusing on America. In the 1700s, nearly every ship was from Europe. The Spanish, the French, and the English had the largest and strongest navy. The Danes of Denmark were the largest transporters of slaves. Although the Danes outlawed slavery in 1792, they still made money transporting enslaved peoples. Most of these boats were large cargo ships that were modified to carry humans. And after it was no longer profitable to traffic humans, a lot of the boats were then reused to transport goods. These boats were not going to just be left to rot away. They were going to be used and continuously used. This is actively documented by slavevoyages.org, which documents all of the slave ships that docked into the Americas and left the Americas, and also where they came from. So to answer the question, where are the slave ships now? There are an estimated 3 million ships on the ocean bed. It would be safe to say that some of the slave ships are there, but they've also continually uncovered slave ships on the coast of the Americas and Africa.
The summer of 2003, an underwater investigation unlocks a dark chapter in history.
I think that all people can come together to understand why this particular ship is important.
The Henrietta Marie.
When we're dealing with a shipwreck, you're looking at what is essentially like a big crime scene.
A crime scene that indicates the Henrietta Marie engaged in a shameful commerce.
We found pewter plates, pewter spoons, shackles.
The Henrietta Marie was a slave ship that took its crew to their deaths after delivering its passengers to hell.
They would pack as many individuals as they thought they could keep alive.
Now, 300 years after she sank, technology and determination shine a light on one of history's darkest crimes.
Mozambique Island in East Africa was a headquarters for the slave trade for 400 years. Museum director Lonnie Bunch showed us where Africans were auctioned and marched to the sea.
What you probably had was almost an assembly line. You'd bring people, you'd sell people, then you would move them onto the boats and off to the New World. It's a combination of unbelievable pain, a sense of anger, a sense of loss, but also an amazing sense of optimism that the people who shuffled down this ramp, those that were able to survive, built the Americas.
The ship Bunch was looking for was discovered in the archives of Cape Town, South Africa. Anthropologist Steve Lupkeman found an old investigation into a Portuguese ship that hit bad luck at the Cape of Good Hope. 200 slaves drowned in the wreck.
I find it crazy that some people are willing to dismiss the atrocities and horrors that our ancestors went through. Outlandish claims like the transatlantic slave trade was a hoax. It baffles me. I hear a lot of talks about agents, but I'm truly convinced that the people pushing these myths and the misinformation are the true agents, possibly even paid to cause people of the African diaspora to no longer believe they are of African descent and that the slave trade was a hoax. They'll tell you that instead, the white man enslaved black people that were already here. So hypothetically, if the government decided to give reparations to the descendants of enslaved Africans, but you claim that you're not a descendant of enslaved Africans, I'm pretty sure the government would argue that you could not get reparations since you're not a descendant. The truth is, Europeans would rather lies be told about African people than the truth. They then avoid having to pay reparations, and it removes the stigma attached. I do believe that there were black indigenous peoples. I highlighted this in my African Americans Are Not African video. So yes, I do believe that there were black indigenous people. This is backed up with DNA evidence and archaeological finds that lead to population Y, which have direct links to Aboriginal Australasians. So check that video out. It'll be in the description. But I do not believe every black American or black Caribbean is a descendant of these few Aboriginals. The transatlantic slave trade definitely happened. It was definitely real. There are scholars that believe the figures are much larger than the Europeans allow us to believe. African people did travel and explore the world before anyone else. They traded with many different peoples. But once the Europeans ventured into Africa, well, the horrors began. I have a video which goes into depth about the truth behind slavery in my description, which you may be interested in. Peace, love, and coconut oil.
Hey man, that's racist. Please remember that from now on, brand new never before seen videos, as well as live streams, will only be available on my website, ikyg.com, via a Patreon subscription. ikyg.com is a black-owned, black-ran platform, 100% free from censorship. It's the only place where we don't have to worry about what we say and expressing ourselves. Make sure you check out the description and the comment section for important links, as well as information in video form that shows you what benefits you get when you support the site and join my Patreon. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe and be notified every time I upload a video. For exclusive content and perks, check out my Patreon. This is where we have private live streams, group chats, live Q&As, live phone calls, and open topics. This is a safe space where you can interact with other like-minded people, make friends, send each other direct private messages, and so much more without any trolls. And yes, you get to use GIFs and images in the live chats. So what are you waiting for? This is a completely independent website, free from censorship. If you'd like to make a donation towards the site so we can continue to put out the truth without fear of being silenced, then please hit that donation button. It's greatly appreciated. Check out the rest of the site for videos, private and public live streams, find out all the tea, and make sure to utilize the Black Money section of the website. Advertise your business absolutely free to people that look like you, free forever. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at angel_IKYG.